Hello everyone and welcome to the long-awaited Game 6 of the World Chess Championship match. Liren, the champion from China versus Gukesh, the challenger representing India. Now, when it comes to a World Chess Championship match, Game 6 has an incredible historical significance. If you go way back, you can find incredible games in the World Chess Championship matches that happen just in Game 6. And even if you go, let's say, to Magnus Carlsen versus Yanni Pomnici, it was, it could have gone either way, but then that Game 6 happened, the longest game ever in a World Chess Championship match. Magnus won, and it was all downhill for Nepo from that point on. But we could go way back, like the 1960 Botvinnik versus Tal, Game 6 of their World Chess Championship match. That night, a 4-move by Tal, absolutely incredible. We could go to the applause game, Bobby Fischer versus Boris Spassky, also Game 6, a very, very notable game of the World Chess Championship match. So it definitely has that special place. Will this be one of them? Let's check it out. Ding has the white pieces, and he opens with pawn to d4. And yes, we are going to discuss it a little bit because you guys are always asking me, but what about the handshake? Was there any eye contact action? So let's check it out. We have a beautiful photo here by the master of photography, David Llada himself. There you have it, the handshake before the game. Ding with the standing handshake. Gukesh arrived a little bit earlier. So no eye contact there, and pretty sterile environment as you would expect in a World Chess Championship match. And also there is something that I really wanted to show you. Also here we have from a different corner when the players are seated. So let's check that out as well. And I have something very, very special prepared for you. Let me just load it up. I think it's very, very important to feel what the players are feeling while playing the actual World Chess Championship match, because okay, you could you maybe imagine what's it like to be there, but here you will just a few seconds just to get into the mood of the championship. Like, even if the video was on mute, this is even more silent. Like, it has audio, but it's even more silent than if it was on mute, just for you guys to get an idea of what kind of silence we're dealing with here. Okay, just the first couple of moves, like dead silence. You can almost hear the silence. All right, just the first couple of moves. Now let's check it out. So for Game 6, Ding opts for pawn to d4. So he tried pawn to e4, he tried knight to f3. None of it seems to be working. The only win he got was with the French defense in Game 1 with the black pieces. Now he tries for pawn to d4. We'll see if this one works out. If not, there's always pawn to c4. And if that doesn't work out, well, we can go even beyond that. We have knight to f6 by Gukesh and bishop to f4. Again, the London system at the World Chess Championship match. We have pawn to d5, pawn to e3, pawn to e6, and knight to f3. We have pawn to c5 and pawn to c3, going for this well-known setup in the London. Bishop to d6, and now bishop to b5 with check. And this is where things get really, really interesting, because bishop to g3 is a very well-known move. And even Magnus Carlsen himself has played it with white against Ding Liren. Their game ended in a draw. It was in last year's Tata Steel tournament, which is also classical. So you know it's good if Magnus plays it. And here Ding is saying, okay, if Magnus played it against me, I'm just going to play it against Gukesh. I mean, if Magnus plays it, obviously it's very good, but he switches the move order a little bit. He plays bishop to b5 with check. And obviously it's hard to say to what extent the preparation goes, but obviously there was a way for Gukesh to somehow deviate from the game that the Ding and Magnus played, but then maybe he gets some sort of a worse position or something. But through a different move order, they go right into the exact same position. Bishop captures on d6, queen captures, and now queen to a4, going right into the game. Magnus Carlsen versus Ding Liren from last year's Tata Steel. We have castles, but in this position, Magnus castled, and Ding prepared something else. Ding plays queen to a3, and this looks very, very interesting. Pinning the black queen here, like in that one game where Fischer did it to Spassky. And it is now, as of move 10, that we have a completely new game. And okay, Gukesh plays knight to e4. He says, this is a wonderful square. I'm gonna get my knight here. In the future, I might go pawn to f5, might go pawn to e5. All depends on what the Ding plays. And Ding goes knight f to d2. It's interesting, you could also play knight b to d2 and then go into something like c captures on d4 while the queen is still defended. But no, knight f to d2, and now look at this. Pawn to e5. You have the situation on the clock, Gukesh playing also pretty much instantly, and with pawn to e5, as the d5 square is no longer defended by the knight, so it's a pawn sacrifice. Why is he sacrificing a pawn here? Well, he will get a lot of them back, so let's see what happens. Knight captures on e4, d captures, and queen captures on c5. Ding captures the pawn, queen to g6, attacking the g2 pawn, and now, while you could play something like rook to g1, Ding and his situation on the clock shows that he knows very well what he's doing, and he just plays knight to d2, puts pressure on the e4 pawn, continues development, prepares castles queenside, and Gukesh goes for the pawn. Queen captures on g2, we have castles queenside, giving up the f2 pawn as well. Queen captures on f2, and now d captures on e5, and look at this position. I mean, it's move 16 already. Players spent barely any time, and we have this position on the board. That is definitely worthy of a game 6. And now, well, how do you continue? Do you play something like bishop to g4, put pressure on the rook? It's certainly possible. Something like knight captures on e4, attacks the queen, queen goes back, attacks the knight, knight, let's say g3, attacks the queen, queen e6, and you get something like this. Okay, you're still putting pressure on e5, you're defending on c6, and maybe then you play rook b8, maybe try to double up on the b file and go after the white king. But Gukesh says, nope, just rook to b8, and he played it fairly quickly, spent some 5 minutes on the move, saying that if the knight moves to a weird square now, let's say knight captures on e4, then queen captures on b2 is checkmate. So Ding has to be very careful here. He goes knight to c4. The b2 pawn is nicely defended by the knight, and he's preparing rook to d2 to kick away the queen from that powerful second rank. And also the queen and knight from their respective squares are defending the e3 pawn. We have bishop to e6, and this is a most interesting decision by Gukesh, because you could also play something else. You could also play queen to g2. And the reason why you play queen to g2 is that Ding has nothing to try once you play queen to g2. But it's such a deep move, and it requires preparation, and obviously Gukesh was out of his preparation by this point. But the point is that after, let's say, rook h to g1, as there is no other way to seize advantage here, you will capture the pawn, and now this is just a draw. If you want it, you can have it, like rook e to f1, attacks the queen, queen to e2, and now you just go after the queen, and it's a draw. Because if you play queen to g2, then rook e to g1, and now white is winning. So that's why it's just a quick draw, something like e6. The queen gets access to this g file, and even if g6, something like queen h6 goes after the h7 pawn, it's gonna be over very quickly. But Gukesh says, no, let's play bishop e6. He wants to continue this game, even though it seems like it's Ding who out-prepared him. Look at Gukesh's time. He's already down to 1 hour and 30 minutes on the clock. Rook to d2, attacking the queen, and now queen to f3, putting pressure on the rook on h1, rook to e1, defending the pawn on e3, and now bishop captures on c4. The knight is extremely powerful here, and you definitely want it gone. Queen captures, and now queen to f5, putting pressure on the e5 pawn, and we have a trade of pawns. Queen captures on c6, and queen captures on e5. Ding not worried about opening up the files for Gukesh's rooks, as obviously he has this very well prepared, even though they are at similar points on the clock. We have queen to d5, Ding offers a trade, and queen to e7. We have queen to d6, offering another trade, queen to g5, and queen to d5, offering another trade. Queen to e7, queen to d6, queen to g5, and queen to d5, offering another trade. And now, if Gukesh repeats, it is a draw by threefold repetition. And everyone was pretty much sure that that is exactly what is going to happen. Okay, Ding out-prepared him a little bit. Makes sense to take a draw with the black pieces. Tomorrow is a rest day, and then you try again with white in game 7. But no, Gukesh plays queen to h4. What can be said about this move? It's definitely a bold move, because you know that Ding has nothing prepared on this position, as even the engine says that it's definitely a suboptimal move. But now you're saying, okay, let's play chess. Gukesh is convinced that this position is not lost for him, so if it can be played, let's play it. And now Ding is the one who is under pressure, even though objectively his position might still be better. Rook e to d1, Ding grabs full control over the d file, and pawn to g6, creating some breathing room for the king. Queen to e5, and now rook b to e8. Attacking the queen, we have queen to g3, offering a queen trade, and again Gukesh declines the quick draw. He goes for queen to h5, allowing Ding to even further improve his position, because if you just trade here, let's say captures and captures, and something like rook to e5, you can go after the g3 pawn, even though you can give up the 7th rank, doesn't really matter, rook to g5, and you have everything needed to go for a draw. Maybe even you play this for a win once those pawns start marching forward. But here we have queen to h5. Again, Gukesh just wants the queens on the board, queen to f4, and now queen to a5, going after the a2 pawn. Now Gukesh says he's ready to go after the b file, and Ding plays pawn to a3. You could also play something like king to b1. Probably this would force Gukesh to go for a queen trade, but even though the queen trade is objectively the best move you can play here, Gukesh already explained that he's not interested in what's objectively best. He wants to play with queens on the board. So pawn to a3, and now queen to b5, threatening queen to b3, queen to a2, and queen to a1 with some sort of an infiltrating action maneuver. If you can also double up rooks on the b file, it's going to be even better. So rook to d4, played very quickly by Ding, because it sort of prevents queen to b3. The reason it prevents it is after queen to b3, you can just capture on e4, and you don't really care. Okay, you're even threatening to trade off some material, and if rook to b8, the problem is that the queen also guards the b8 square, so you can just play rook b4, and after, let's say, rook captures, a captures, and queen to a2, there's nothing for the black queen to do there. I mean, you can give one check, but then the a4 is covered by the white queen, so that's pretty much it, and the white has an amazing position, objectively a winning one. So after rook to d4, we have queen back to e2, or rather queen forward to e2, rook 1 to d2, and now queen to f3, offering a queen trade. And now Ding, after some careful consideration, probably due to being low on time, plays queen to c2. He did spend some 10-11 minutes on this idea, but the real trick was keeping the queens on the board. Now it is favorable for Ding, because what can Gukesh do here? Not a lot. For example, queen h1 check, king to c2, and now if he even tries some queen to e3 action, trying to put some pressure on that e3 pawn, sort of make the white queen not have a lot of squares. Now if you trade queens and let's say captures, let's say king g7, pawn to b4, now the pawns are marching forward. Let's say pawn to f5, pawn to c4, pawn to c5, b5, c6, and so on. It's a very good position for Ding. But after queen to f3, Ding played king to c2, and now he allows Gukesh to trade queens on his own terms and create a pass pawn. And Gukesh immediately captures this opportunity, and the queen, obviously. E captures on f4, and now pawn to f5, and having pawns on f and h file is much different from having pawns on e and g file, because, well, now there's also a passed e pawn to worry about. Pawn to h4 by Gukesh, and now by Ding, and now pawn to e3, attacking the rook. King to g7 might have even been an attempt from Gukesh to play for a win, but he is very low on time. He still needs to make 4 more moves, and of course you cannot invest all of this time, but getting your king all the way to g4 would be pretty crazy. So after h4, pawn to e3, attacking Ding's rook, rook to e2. But okay, this also means that you've paralyzed Ding's rook on e2 for pretty much the rest of the game. Rook to e7, there was some discussion whether it was better to play rook to f7 because the engine doesn't like rook to e7, but no one could really explain it. Even Peter Leko, while explaining the difference, couldn't really figure out why it's better, so I'm not going to pretend I know the difference. So rook to e7, we have king to d3, and now rook f to e8, nicely doubling up on the e file. Pawn to h5 by Ding. sacrificing a pawn to break up Gukesh's pawn structure. G captures, and now rook to d5, putting pressure on f5. Obviously, he calculated this well, as when he played it, he was walking around the playing hall, so it doesn't seem that there's any issues there. And he makes his move 40, which means Gukesh needs one more move to reach time control, and he plays it, pawn to h4. It is the top move recommended by the engine. He plays it, gains more time on the clock, 30 extra minutes, and now the game continues. Rook captures on f5. Even though Ding doesn't have to capture it, he could again start moving his pawns forward, but he decides to go after material. Rook captures on f5, and now rook to d7 check, where Ding has to go back, and now it's definitely a draw, because if you go forward to c4, then rook d2, you cannot trade. Obviously, you have to go back, and then something like h3, rook h2, the pawn here is nicely defended, and now these two pawns are too strong. This is completely winning for black now. So after rook d7, king to c2 was played, king to g7, Gukesh now starts getting his king into the game. Rook to g2 with check. Ding doesn't allow it, pushes the king back. If you go to h6, of course, then you just get checkmated, so that's not an option. So Ding's king cannot go forward because it gets checkmated, and Gukesh's king also cannot go forward because it gets checkmated. It has to go back, and now Ding has to block Gukesh's passed e-pawn, rook e2, which would not be a problem if Ding simply traded queens the proper way. King to g7, and now rook to g2 with check. c4, this was pretty much the last opportunity for Ding to start playing with something like c4, b4, c5, and so on. But then Gukesh also has the option of playing king to g6 and going after the rook, something like rook g5, king to f6. And then even if you go after this pawn, it doesn't really matter, because if you ever capture it, then the king can come into the game, and it's going to be problems for white. So here, after rook to g2 with check, king to h8, once again repeating, rook to e2 repeating, and king to g7 repeating. And it was in this position on move 46 that Ding Liren and Gukesh Domaraju agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here. So a bit of a slap in the face for Ding, because, well, he probably thought, okay, I explored all of my options, I used up all of my preparation, let's just call it a day and let's have some nice rest, as tomorrow is a rest day. But Gukesh said, nope, let's play. This is game 6 of the World Chess Championship match. We cannot just abandon tradition and make it a short draw. We have to try something, and they definitely did try, but in the end it does, result in a draw. So it was a pretty interesting game. If anyone had chances here, it was definitely Ding, and then maybe later on Gukesh had a chance to march his king forward instead of going for that pawn push. But yeah, I mean, a little time on the clock and no increment before reaching time control means that players will not burn all of their time, as it's very easy to lose on time, even in classical, if your clock drops down too low. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you have a great rest today. If you have any suggestions on what you would like to see on the rest today, also do use #suggestion. And I would like to invite everyone to check out the 2 links in the description below. The ICC, the Internet Chess Club, has published some videos on Gukesh Domaraju, as he is so young, and some of you who maybe have only just started following chess maybe don't know all that much about him. And everything is a lot more interesting if you learn some lore. So do check it out. Both links, you can watch it on ICC, and you can also watch it on their YouTube channel. So do check it out. The videos are presented by Grandmaster Alex Cholovic. So have at it. Some good content there. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank David Gasparian, Thomas Veterli, Ahmad Khalil, Brian Paquin, and Casey Vance for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and, well, basically following this World Chess Championship match until it finishes. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.